It has been humiliation after humiliation for Donald Trump lately, and oh boy did it continue today at the UN. Not just because Trump humiliates himself wherever he goes, attacking world leaders, saying their countries are going to hell, but because his wife, or his contractually obligated wife at the event today, had Donald Trump humiliated as well in two moments. One, as he entered the building, which he complained about a lot in his speech, and also in a speech that Melania delivered. We're going to get into it all because it's pretty hilarious, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into how Melania humiliated Donald Trump, I want to start with the humiliation that found both of them as they got on the escalator today, which Donald Trump was complaining about, and now Carolyn Levitt is throwing a full-blown meltdown. Just check out what happened today. It was hilarious.
Got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work.
President Trump, what happened with Chuck Schumer?
You're going to push Zelensky for peace, President Trump.
President Trump, Schumer.
Эскалатор не работает.
So after that unfortunate escalator incident, Carolyn Levitt wrote, if someone at the UN intentionally stopped the escalator as the president and first lady were stepping on, they need to be fired and investigated immediately. The Times reported this on Sunday. Okay. So Donald Trump gets on the escalator and it just stops. And now Carolyn Levitt, I'm sorry, I'm going to start crying. Carolyn Levitt's like, I demand someone be fired. Is Donald Trump going to get Pam Bondi on the case? We need an immediate investigation, not into Epstein or his associates and the crimes that they committed, but into escalator gates. Like, what is this administration? It's laughable. They are just so stupid. This is a complete embarrassment. Donald Trump wants to portray himself as the big, strong, tough guy, but he is just so weak. And we saw that today when, after getting his feelings hurt by Putin, he decided to...
So Donald Trump's teleprompter broke today when he was speaking at the UN General Assembly, and he gave one of the most embarrassing speeches in all of U.S. history. Let's start with this one where he's addressing immigration in other countries.
You have to end it now. Sid, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. In America, we've taken bold action to swiftly shut down uncontrolled migration.
And then he also started talking about climate change and how other countries are to blame and not the United States, of course. But when he was speaking about environmentalists and people who care about the environment in general, he was saying no more cows. We don't want cows anymore. I guess they want to unalive all the cows. And he even decided to shout out his own merch line, saying, I'm really good at predicting things. During the campaign, they had a hat, a best-selling hat, of course. Trump was right about everything it said. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. This is the way he's speaking in front of world leaders as the President of the United States. He reduced America's voice to playground insults, conspiracy theories, and petty side rants where no one even knows what he's talking about. Instead of diplomacy, he bragged about himself. Instead of unity, he mocked our allies. And instead of leadership, his speech was filled with shame and confusion. Every single time Trump gets on the global stage and makes speeches like this, it chips away at America's credibility, leaving us weaker, smaller, and way less respected than we previously were. And that is exactly what our foreign adversaries want.
Donald Trump just said this in front of the United Nations, and it's relevant not just for Canada, but for the world. Watch this.
Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained. Is the number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that?
Canada is doing the exact same thing. They give per diems, they give them free hotels, they give them free food. They even give them money for clothes. And to top it all off, you have a certain amount of children, you get a bonus too. And he is right. This is suicide. Suicide for a country. It will destroy the very fabric of our society having this type of uncontrolled migration. When you do mass importation of people who do not conform to North American standards and they bring their culture's habits, and that's the important part, their habits, and do not integrate in our society, we have a problem. Take this from an immigrant. I come from a third world country, and even though our values in El Salvador are Christian-based, I can tell you the values of some of the other countries of what we're mass bringing in, it's going to be a problem. It already is becoming a problem. There's a reason why our crime is completely out of control. We're getting to the point now where judges are giving lighter sentences to immigrants so they don't get deported, so their chances don't get taken from them to become Canadian citizens. We don't need them as Canadian citizens. There's no moral obligation for us to give this to them. Take a wild guess at what the Liberals decide to do. They introduce something called Bill C-3. It gives an unprecedented chain of mass citizenship that makes it easier for people to become Canadian citizens. People can pass along the ability to become a Canadian citizen to children born abroad beyond the first generation. Some of the things that the MPs are talking about in the House are insane. It's going to destroy our country, I promise you.
You knew that this was coming. Let's fact check Trump's General Assembly speech at the United Nations today. First off, I literally saw him this morning on my way to a doctor's appointment heading to give this speech. Is that not the most weird shit ever? Let's get into it. He first called the United States the hottest country in the world. That is the second time that he has done this on a global audience. There's no other country that's even close. He said we have the strongest economy in the world and called this the golden age of America. Technically true, but he inherited a strong economy from Joe Biden. He said that we are rapidly fixing price increases and that inflation has been defeated. No? He said that under his leadership, energy costs are down. Not true. He said workers' wages are higher this year than any time in the past 60 years. Well, yeah, if you compare today's wages to the wages that were in 1960, they're higher. He said that he has secured $17 trillion in foreign investments in his first 8 months. This is kind of crazy because if you literally go to the whitehouse.gov website, it says 8.8 trillion. Said we have implemented the largest tax cuts in American history. The Economic Recovery Act of 1981 and the Revenue Act of 1964 would beg to differ. So the progressive tax rates at one point in this country, the highest ones used to be at 90%. He once again said that the number of illegal aliens entering our country the past 4 months is 0. He said that if you illegally enter our country, you'll be sent back to your country or somewhere else. You know what I mean. He said that on the world stage, America is respected like it has never been respected before. Interesting because favorability ratings in America have dropped by double digits since Trump took office. He claims to have ended 7 unendable wars, even though most of these are ongoing or the UN has never classified them as wars. He said, "It's too bad I had to do all of this instead of the United Nations. It's sad you didn't even try. All I got from the UN was an escalator that didn't work, and if the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen." He asked, what even is the purpose of the United Nations? He said he deserved the Nobel Peace Prize, but I also don't care about winning prizes. He took credit for renovating the United Nations and giving them mahogany walls instead of plastic walls. He said there is no more bigger threat to humanity than the most powerful weapons known to mankind, of which the United States has many. He ordered the EU to cut off energy purchases from Russia. That I actually agree with, to be honest. He said that if the world used its nuclear weapons, there would no longer be a United Nations. Yeah, because there would no longer be a world. He said that his poll numbers are the highest they've ever been before. They are at record lows for a president in his first year. He said that global warming is a scam. Climate change is the greatest con job in the history of our world, and climate change was made by stupid people. He said, I'm really good at predicting things. I actually had a hat on the campaign trail that said Trump was right about everything, because I am. And he said he hopes that all countries find inspiration in America. I don't know how many more of these I can do before I just, decide to run into a concrete wall.
So Donald Trump just spoke at the UN General Assembly, and he was only supposed to speak for 15 minutes, and he crashed out. And not just for 15 minutes. I think he went for over an hour. And I know what the problem is. He didn't get the presidential treatment like a king. So Broski crashed out because he had to walk on a broken escalator, right? Buddy crashed out, pretty much said, hey, climate change is a hoax. All these green energy initiatives, that's one of the biggest con jobs in history. And the best part, when I check the comments on X, people are agreeing with that climate change is an hoax. I mean it. Like the comments that people are saying that, yeah, he's right. People are agreeing with it. And obviously the president of peace has to bring up immigration policies that the rest of the world lacks. And then just crash out on everyone. But guys, you have to remember, this is the president of peace we're talking. He's ended all wars. Except the one that he said he was going to end, day one. But, he acknowledged that it was a lot, it was a lot more difficult than he anticipated. But he should win the Nobel Peace Prize for what he has done for the world. And then on top of that, the teleprompter wasn't working. The UN, whoever organized this, you guys got to do better. This is the president of peace we're talking about here. You guys got to do better. But my question also for the UN, why didn't you guys just turn off the mic? After 30 minutes, and everyone's kind of looking at him going, and then he's just crashing out everyone saying, you guys are just full of yourself. You guys just write down these documents and no action. This guy's attacking mayors and everything. You guys could have cut off that mic anytime. But no, man. But hey, you should watch it. It's a great speech. Buddy crashed out, as he always does, speaks his mind, and left. Until next time.
U.S. President Donald Trump just spoke at the UN General Assembly where he told European countries that they are going to hell, insisted that he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, and gave the UN shit for not giving him an adequate teleprompter and escalator. He was allotted a time of 15 minutes to speak. He spoke for an hour.
Donald Trump just spoke at the United Nations, and yes, he demanded a Nobel Peace Prize. Here's what went down. Trump told the General Assembly that everybody believes he deserves a Nobel because, according to him, he's ended 7 unendable wars. But let's be real, the Russian invasion of Ukraine is still ongoing, despite his claim he could end it in 24 hours. The war between Israel and Gaza hasn't ended either. He circled back, saying again that the world thinks he's entitled to the prize. Then he shifted into grievance mode, railing against the United Nations for not giving him the contract to build their new headquarters. Instead, Trump said the UN has only given him 2 things: a bad escalator and a broken teleprompter. Experts say what he really delivered was an attempt to gaslight the UN into applause and validation. Trump has chased the Nobel ever since Barack Obama received one, and he hasn't been able to get it. But once again, he's trying to turn the world stage into his campaign stage. Spread the word. Follow we the people.
Trump's meeting at the UN, they tried to sabotage him. They turned off his teleprompter. He laughed, and then he spoke for 55 minutes, 40 minutes over his allowed time, called them out to their face, told them the migrations through the world, you funded. You let 25 million people into the United States. I hadn't heard that number. 25 million in the last 4 years of undocumented from all over the world came into the United States. Said to the UN, you guys funded it. You guys gave them loaded debit cards. You guys did this worldwide. You guys lied to every nation about climate change and the Green Deal. You guys cost nations billions. Billions. It was beautiful to watch. If you haven't, there's pieces all over this app. People are piecing it together and putting it up. But it was great to see. Had to be done. Glad he did it. Glad it was him who did it.
Tonight,
the United Nations became the stage for one of Donald Trump's most chaotic performances yet. The president delivered a 60-minute speech, quadruple his allotted time, filled with complaints about escalators, teleprompters, and building contracts before launching into sweeping global claims. At the center, Trump declared he had personally ended 7 wars, naming conflicts between India and Pakistan, Israel and Iran, and Armenia and Azerbaijan. None of those wars ended during his presidency. Still, he framed the remarks as an audition for the Nobel Peace Prize, insisting he cared only about saving lives. The reaction was immediate. Senator Mark Kelly, attending UN events in New York, said Trump was adding more countries every day to his fabricated list of peace deals. Kelly compared the performance to the Wizard of Oz. Just give him a medal and he'll be happy. But beyond theatrics, Trump's words raised real concerns. On Ukraine, he swung wildly between supporting sanctions on Russia and suggesting Kiev could seize Russian territory. On Gaza, he repeated vague promises to end the war without offering a plan. Kelly warned these contradictions signaled dangerous instability in U.S. foreign policy. Domestically, Trump canceled a planned budget meeting with congressional leaders, posting an angry screed instead. With the shutdown looming, lawmakers question whether he can be trusted to negotiate at all. For world leaders watching today, the message was clear. The United States is represented by a president who dismisses scientific evidence, inflates his record, and delivers contradictions instead of policy. Allies are unsettled, adversaries emboldened, and the global stage left shaking its head after a speech unlike anything the UN has seen before.
This article comes from The Guardian by Patrick Wintour. Trump's UN speech makes it clear the world can no longer look to the U.S. for strong leadership. Such is the gravitational pull cast by Donald Trump and the U.S. economy that the politics of the other 192 countries that make up the United Nations are rapidly being reduced to one long discussion about how to relate to and challenge this ever darker and weirder presidency. Before Trump's extraordinary 58-minute speech on the supposed threats posed by open borders, Sharia law, and the UN's failings and the climate hoax. The supporters of the UN's values already knew they faced a challenge. Now they realize the degree to which the world's superpower seems bent on destruction of everything they believe. He did not hold back. So it's just, we are completely isolated now. That's official. Immediately after the shocked and even embarrassed UN delegates had recovered from Trump's performance, the General Assembly was addressed by leaders of 2 large Muslim states, the Indonesian president and the Turkish president. Subianto was strongly applauded when he asserted, quote, "Might cannot be right. Right must be right. No one country can bully the whole of the human family. We may be weak individually, but the sense of oppression and injustice will unite us into a strong force that will overcome this injustice." Too bad we're not on that side, huh? Immediately prior to Trump's address, the Brazilian president, without mentioning the U.S., had given a sophisticated warning about the threat posed by the new authoritarians. Quote, "Today, the ideals that inspired the UN's founders in San Francisco are under threat as never before in their history. Multilateralism is at a new crossroads. This organization's authority is in check. We are witnessing the constellation of an international order marked by repeated concessions to power play. Attacks on sovereignty, arbitrary sanctions, and unilateral interventions are becoming the rule." It's true. That's the norm now, and it's not just the U.S. anymore. There is a clear parallel between multilateralism's crisis and the weakening of democracy. Authoritarianism is strengthened when we fail to act in the face of arbitrary acts, when international society falters in defending peace and sovereignty. Anti-democratic forces are trying to subjugate institutions and stifle freedoms. They worship finance, they praise ignorance, and act as physical and digital militias and restrict the press. And this is the story across the world now, right? The U.S., China, Russia, Hungary, the list just goes on and on. Others, such as South Korea president, insisted that climate crisis was so Trump called the climate crisis a hoax. Told everybody that they got to stop paying attention to it. Apparently, insisted that the climate crisis was far from being a hoax. It represented a threat to global humanity. Of course, it does. Yet the Trump speech also made even more stark and urgent the unavoidable question of how the world will operate in the absence of reliable American leadership. This is not just a question for the global South, but also for Europe as it confronts Russia, for Asia as it wrestles with Chinese power, and for the Gulf as it grapples with Israel's military dominance. One response is the alliance of autocrats on display in Beijing at the beginning of the month, led by Xi and Putin. This is just so sad.
At the UN today, in front of all of the world leaders, Trump got on stage and said that all of their countries are going to hell. He said that the carbon footprint is a hoax. He has the greatest poll numbers, and he was right about everything. He said he even has a hat that says Trump was right about everything. Basically saying your countries suck, none of you know what you are doing, the US is better at everything. All because of me, basically degrading all of these countries, saying that he pulled out of the Paris Accord agreement because it was a hoax. And apparently there was teleprompter issues during the UN speech from what I saw. This is so unprofessional and it's embarrassing.
And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. Proud to see this morning I have the highest poll numbers I've ever had.
You gotta see this. And now, lessons in diplomacy with President Trump at the UN General Assembly.
I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Never mind. Well, at least he'll be able to catch up with them later. Thoughts?